Hello and welcome back, everyone. I am Heidi Ferguson, and with me is Fereshta Ramsey, and this is Fierce Honest Hearts. And let's see. So I think that fall's coming early. I'm excited about that. It's my favorite season, and I know that we don't talk about the weather at length, but I feel it's really important because I moved about 2.5 weeks ago, which I'm thrilled and excited about. And I'm just noticing, even in my own new space, because I'm on the second floor as opposed to third floor, I don't have to run the AC as much, and it is cooler. Like, it's definitely cooler. It's still humid, but it's cooler, and I'm really, really appreciating that. So let's see my check-in. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I have a friend, a dear, dear, dear friend, whom is, I'm not even sure what to say about my friend, but we're different in a lot of ways, and yet we're similar in a lot of ways. And I would also say that we both really appreciate each other's gifts and the things that we bring to our friendship, and the things that like our individual gifts. So let me just share. My friend offered, because like I said, I moved into this new space, and I am challenged when it comes to spatial things and visual, like really, I mean, I understand feng shui, but it's not a forte of mine anyway. And so my friend came over this afternoon for over an hour. I know. And spent time in every room. And I mean, I'm not even kidding. My friend was here for about an hour, almost an hour and a half, like really spent time thinking and whatnot. And so I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot of work to do, a lot of big furniture moving, and I've already started the process. And I'm like, wow, okay, this like, when my friend described it, I'm like, yes, this makes sense. Like with like, of course that makes sense. And then where to kind of place things, and that was a lot of fun. And then the other thing that I wanted to share is that I'm on this Facebook group. It's called Buy Nothing German. It's a nationwide thing, and if you want to go to your local community and look it up, it's a give and take. It's a free kind of thing. And I have purged all, like, a third of my clothes. Feels so good. Anyway, so I reached out and I asked for fresh basil because I'm running low on my pesto. I had one woman yesterday who gave me some, and then this other woman today who I was like, are you sure you want to give me all this? And she's like, yeah, I'm yeah. And she just kept cutting and cutting. So when we're done, I'll be making pesto I know, I'm so excited. So I'm feeling like summer, I don't cook as much, but when the cold weather hits, I start making soups and sauces and things like that. So getting excited. Yeah. Yeah. And then the last thing that I want to share, which we will talk about today on the podcast, is being broken up with in a friendship, and how and how over the years, over the decades, how that's affected me and how different this feels. Yeah, and we can get more into it, but there's certainly a grieving period, for undoubtedly a grieving period. And I feel like I'm in the stages of that, kind of going back and forth between a couple of them. And I don't want to share too much right now, but I'll share more when we have our conversation. So I'm checked in for now.
Oh, I love when you say that. I say that to other people now. I've adopted it from you.
Good.
Yeah, thank you, friend. I'm still like in awe of, I don't know, the ease, the grace, whatever you want to call it. Like, because when you say I moved in 2.5 weeks ago, I'm just like, oh. And then I'm like, but you have just shown up over and over again with me in joy, in celebration in the to-dos. I just find it remarkable. So I think a lot of people might tap out and be like, I got time for nobody because I'm moving. And I just appreciate you for like, you make it look so easy, and I know it's probably not, but it just feels like you just have a grace about you in this kind of experience, and I'm noticing it. So yeah, that I wanted to say first. And I'm with you on the pesto because we have a crazy amount of basil on the deck, and Richard's so good at being like, this is gonna flower soon. We need to tend to this, where I'm just like smelling it. So I'm gonna surprise him with some pesto later today because we love that stuff. And we bottle it up for the winter too. Those cold days when you're like, oh, let's make something yummy. And I'm grateful that we're still gonna have some hot days. I'm not even bothered by the humidity when I normally would be because I know it's leaving. Like I know this is late summer, right? And I love knowing that you love autumn. I think I'm a big fan of like those perfect summer days, those cool, breezy, slightly hot summer days. We had a few last week and I was like, this is just dreamy, dreamy weather. Oh, did I freeze there for a second? When I think of late fall, I start to think of cold. But if I think of early fall, which you're inviting me to do, it's like, oh, that's kind of yummy, like a little jacket, cool, brisk, crisp air. So you're helping me get excited about fall because I'm more like, summer, don't go right now. Yeah. And to this conversation we're having today of, when a friend breaks up with you, I like that title. Just all the complexities of that. And I'll certainly share what I have to share in regards to that. But certainly the grieving acceptance process that's afoot for me, and it sounds like for you as well. Yeah, it's looming large over here today. Yeah. So let's dive in. I mean, I don't know where to start. I know we have a lot to say. um,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm actually gonna take a moment to feel into that. I think the hardest thing for me right now is the unilateral decision, which I know happens, right? But I think when two people go, gosh, this isn't working, I come to acceptance quicker than when it's unilateral and not collaborative and not even given a chance to be collaborative. I think that's the hardest thing for me right now. Losing a friend, it's happened, I get it. But the how is really important to me, how we do it. And if we do it in a really uncaring, shitty way, that's more what upsets me than like, yeah, sometimes things are no longer working. Yeah. What about you? And I know you might be holding multiple people, it sounds like, but what's hardest for you in losing a friend?
Well, I mean, for example, this one,
Mm-hmm.
just the lack of communication and the not knowing and the term being ghosted.
Mm-hmm.
That happen. It happens, and it happened in this circumstance. And so with the not knowing, there's this gaping hole that not only just energetically in the world in my life, but also in my heart.
Yeah.
Because when we've cared, like I statement, so because I've cared so much for this person and made the assumption that that was reciprocated, when things started shifting, again, being ghosted and not knowing what was happening, because that was my experience. I didn't have a conversation. And I was like, I wonder if, I don't know, like, I wonder. And that takes up a lot of energy too, wondering and being like, what happened? And then because I'm the type of person that I am, I often will take that ownership on and say, what have I done? And for even those words, because I feel like I stutter saying those words, because it's painful and it's hard to even mutter, what have I done, when there's no context.
Yeah.
So left in the dark, literally left in the dark, not having any inkling as far as what's going on. Are you, and is the other person, like, are you ghosting for whatever reason? Did I do something? Is something happening in your life? We've, you and I have had this conversation, and yeah, I would say that's the most challenging thing. And that's the most challenging thing. Yeah, I'm gonna stop there. Yeah.
I'm so with you on that. I'm so relating to that because I used to have a pretty strong anxious attachment style. I don't feel like I do anymore. I just have loving concern for people. And also, when I do get anxious, it's generally because someone's not being relational. It's no longer some shit in my head. I think anxious attachment style has this idea of like, the person's ruminating, they're worried. It's like something about their nervous system has an uptick. That can be true, but I don't feel that way anymore, except when I literally feel like someone's not considering another person in the relationship. And I can own for my part, like, that I got anxious in the absence of real information, in the absence of context, in the absence of just like a respectful FYI, right? I too went into like, where's my person? And again, maybe we didn't have shared realities. I thought I was fostering a best friendship, not just an acquaintance, not just a coffee date, not even just like a friend, but like this could be a best friend for life person. So I was giving that kind of energy to the relationship week after week for 3 or 4 years. And like you, to all of a sudden feel like the vacuum, like, wait, where'd this person go? And what happened? I tend to, like you said, without real information, have like worst case scenarios. Is this person pregnant? Did they get assaulted? Are they going through some health diagnosis? Like, I start to go like, what could have possibly happened that someone just went from checking in every week for years to months of emptiness? And I don't find that to be the kindest approach, because that puts all the emotional labor on me. And like for you, right? It to me, it feels very selfish. And I don't say that from a moralistic standpoint, just a like not considering others kind of selfish. To go, oh, I'm not going to do any of the emotional labor. Therefore, you're going to have to do all of it on your own with no information. And then good luck with that. Like that's the feeling. It reminds me a little bit of like, sometimes when men are like, oh, my ex is like batshit crazy or something. And I'm always like, what did you do? Because people don't go batshit crazy generally on their own without cause.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, well, you pulled away, you stopped calling, you stopped responding, you stopped showing up, and then she got anxious. But then the story's like, oh, I can't deal with that anxious chick, without ever thinking about like, how did I contribute to it? And I want to be around friends who are like, how did I contribute to this dynamic that now we're finding ourselves in? Because I want to be that friend,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. Curious for you. Actually, I'm just gonna leave it open. Like, curious what lands and where you want to go there.
Yeah. So thank you for all that. And we often talk about, ownership, responsibility, what is ours? And I would hope that at this point in my life, I'm pretty clear and pretty aware of what is mine.
Mhm.
I would say, 10, 20 years ago, maybe not. However, really, do you really not know, And I mention this because back in, I think it was back in July sometime, I had a session with Aaron Gallagher, which I shared with you a little bit, right? And most of the session, we were talking about this one specific relationship in my life that I'm really struggling with. And I care about this person deeply and not being met, right? And I shared with her an experience that I had where I was I'm just gonna use the term victim, for lack of a better word.
Mhm.
And I was, I think, 5 or 6 at the time, and something was said to me, and what I was so grateful that Erin said to me, she's like, first of all, she suggested that I start doing Byron Katie's work.
Big fan.
And yeah, it completely makes sense. And then she also said to me, she said, the reason I really want you to start doing the work is because then you will come to understand your part in what happened. Fereshta, I honestly would never have guessed that I had a part in that. Like, I wouldn't have. I was 5. I'm like, what did I know? And I can't say I've really delved into the work, but I started looking at some of the questions and I'm like, yep, I don't know what my part is, but I totally get that. And so the reason I'm mentioning this is because every single time there's conflict, it's not one person. It is never, ever, ever, ever one person. It is both people who come to the party and they are part of conflict. And they're also part of the resolution, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to share, and I think I shared that this was months ago, and I was having some conflict with a friend, and I had pointed something out to them. I said, this is where I'm coming from. I'm feeling frustrated, blah, blah, blah. And I said, and I know that there are 2 sides, but I can't see my side. Can you help me?
Oh, wow.
See my side? Yeah. And because I knew that this person could at least say to me, this is the way that I see it. This is your part. And I'm like, oh my God, of course. Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
But that requires a level of humility and willingness and openness, right, on
Totally.
your part. Yeah.
Yes. And, Vista, the reason I did that was because I knew that I knew that we could get beyond the repair. Like, I knew that we have to have this conversation, which was actually not that hard. It's not that hard. It's only as hard as we think it is or that we make it. And so the reason I did that was because I thought, okay, so we're going to have this conversation. We're going to have our come to Jesus moments together in the relationship. And then we're going to be able to repair. And I don't know what I need to repair, but I know there's something. And this person and I have had many really hard, challenging conversations. They're getting a lot easier. They're really kind of flowy. It's really kind of easy anymore. And I'm like, okay, we can do this. And so for me to even be scared of that or fearful or anxious, I'm like, like a little bit, but I'm like, we got this because we have built such a deep trust and knowing with each other that there's this shortcut, like a shortcut, like a shorthand for those of you who were alive back in the 70s and shorthand was a language that secretaries would use. I don't know if you are familiar with shorthand.
I recall I recall the idea in court.
Yeah. And anyway, so it's when one is taking notes and it's just an easier way as opposed to writing all the words. But anyway, there's a shortcut, which is lovely. And it takes years to develop. Let me say that. It's not an easy thing. It takes years to develop. And I'm so grateful that we've both hung in. And I also feel like you and I have that too.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right? Like it's just so much easier. Yeah.
Well, and like you said, right? Like, to your point, like it is a little scary. It does take work. It requires humility and depth and self-awareness and reflection and like all the things, right? And when we had our first conflict, for whatever, maybe it's our own courage, maybe it's the trust we built, it was like, this is really scary because I don't know what conflict with you is going to look like. And I certainly don't know how repair is going to look, right? But I trust us to figure it out. There was no part of me that didn't love and care for you while being triggered, right? And I think one thing I'm holding is that, yes, to your point, two people contribute to the dynamic. And what I find a little insufferable, personally, is when someone just comes with blame and no ownership, because that's a victim seat to me, right? In my experience yesterday, I was really excited to catch up with a friend after 3 months of relative ghosting. Texts here and there, but mostly a very arm's length vibe after years of not that vibe. So I didn't get any context ahead of time, nor did I give any buy-in, right? It was like walking into like, finally, after 3 months, I get to hear what my friend is up to and I've missed her so much. And like, I've been patient and like, here we are finally getting to catch up. I came into it completely blindsided, which again, feels really unskillful and inconsiderate, right? It takes, I don't know, 20 seconds to be like, hey, I'm going to be coming in with some feedback. It might be challenging. Just want you to have a heads up. That's what I expect, actually, of people in my circle. That they don't do a looking forward to seeing you exclamation point heart to then come in and like kamikaze a breakup. That doesn't work for me. In fact, I don't know that that works for anybody. So it was sort of like having to listen under distress while being blindsided, while still actively trying to take ownership for my part. And then getting a unspoken, very unspoken sense that like I'm trying to repair, but someone's already done. That, when I look back, it's one of the most brutal approaches to ending a friendship. No heads up. If anything, like exclamation points and fucking hearts don't do that to people.
No.
Like don't front, to use a word from the 90s.
Yeah.
So to come in unaware and then to just be blamed. And then to be like, okay, I hear you. It sounds like you felt you did this and then I did this and I'm so sorry. Like I don't think I got that memo. And, you know, I can see where that would make you feel like this doesn't feel safe to you. And like, how do we repair that? And then just getting no option for repair. It was like, wow. So you've made a decision. I rubbed you the wrong way months ago. You avoided me for months. And then you're just coming in to say goodbye. Like, that's very unsettling. And again, it doesn't happen in my world that way. So I'm used to friends. Listen, I think this is probably the biggest piece is like over years and years and years of time as different humans, I'm gonna frustrate you. I'm gonna disappoint you. I'm gonna drop you, you know. And my wish is that you come to me and say, ouch, that hurt. And like, okay, let me learn because I want to do better. I want to grow. I want to learn, especially like the people I care about. But if you come in and say, you did this, you did this, you did this, I'm absolved, and I don't ever want to talk to you again, it's like, okay, like, I don't see any choices there.
Mhm.
And I think the shock of it, like, I didn't sleep well last night. It was just like in my head, like, what just happened? You
Mhm.
know? Um, the shock of someone not even attempting to have a generous assumption of my heart, not even wanting to say, hey, like, I wonder what did I do that made you
Yeah.
not get it or do this or not do this or like, you know, I'd like to think that most people have the self-awareness, the reflection, the depth, maybe even the maturity to go, this didn't happen in a vacuum.
Right.
So how did I contribute to it? And I think that's most of repair, right? It's like, oh, when you and I have done it, oh, I was moving too fast for you. I didn't really track that you were getting overwhelmed. Oh, yeah. And then I didn't say anything to you. Like that's part of going, what happened? Like let's unravel this so we can learn from it. I'm all for that kind of conversation with context. Um, but this feels like, huh? I'm still sitting in wait, what? You know, if someone's like, I don't want to be your friend, and that I had to say that, mind you. Took 30 minutes to extrapolate, like, what
Ah,
are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? What does that mean? I don't understand that word.
mhm, mhm.
Are you saying this isn't reparable? Oh, you've already decided. Oh, okay. All right. Goodbye. Like, what the fuck?
Right.
You know, I can feel like a tightening in my chest because it's like, there's no respect in that. There's no consideration in that. There's no like, oh, I see where I dropped you and then had you feeling completely confused and worried about me. I did that. I didn't communicate. I didn't communicate in a way that you could hear. And please, you guys, if you're watching, don't text people when you're in it and think they're going to understand a text. I'm busy is not a boundary. I'm traveling, not a boundary. Uh, let's do coffee in a few weeks, not a boundary. A boundary looks like I'm really in it. I'm not available for texts and calls. I promise I will get to you when I can. And I love you and I care about you. And I got my back, right? Like you're going, hey, over there, I care about you. I'm okay. I need time. Like if I heard that, it's like, got it. But I think it's like, don't hide behind being nice because you're actually really being cruel, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it sends mixed messages. Like for you to get a text of a heart and an exclamation point, and then the conversation be very different. That's so confusing. It's
Yeah.
confusing and it's not fair to the
Yeah.
person that I would be like, what the fuck is happening here?
Yeah, I thought I
What's
was
going
on
on?
crazy pills yesterday. And listen, I still have my part. Like, by no means did I act skillfully in one instance. I was certainly reacting from a hurt place, and all of my attachment wounds were triggered, like being left out, being shut out, being deprioritized, getting radio silence, like all my stuff was triggered totally. And I can own that. And if you say, I'm just super busy, let's have coffee in a few weeks. And then your friend texts you in a few weeks for coffee, they're not a horrible person
Right,
reaching out to you.
right.
They're doing exactly what you invited,
Yeah,
right? And obviously there's more to the story, but like I'm just generalizing the highlights of, don't gaslight people, don't ghost people, don't blindside people, you know, and expect it to be okay. Like skill up, grow up. There's a maturation that has to happen for us to be able to have real lasting friendships. I don't think we've talked about that enough.
yeah.
There's a certain level of maturity and skill.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're just going to bounce around.
Mhm.
You know, which some people might be okay with. I don't want to judge that. Just if you want lasting, meaningful relationships, you have to know how to repair and even share feedback well. Could you imagine just landing on a call with me where everything was like cheery and then just being like, whoa, this sounds like a breakup?
I can't. And I would feel as if I was going out of my mind. I know that I would. And you know, you mentioned maturity and skilling up and having the vocabulary, if you will. And what I'm learning is that that's not the norm.
Yeah.
Sadly, sadly, it's not the norm. And so, for those who are listening and that is not your norm, we are here to model. So continue watching our podcast. And I'm not saying that just so that we grow our audience. I am saying that because that's something I've learned from you. I have. So I've learned from you by example, by you showing up and speaking authentically, and then showing me how to repair in a way that feels safe and healthy and reparative. Like that's what it is. And you know, what a relationship can get to after conflict and repair, there are no words for it. It really is, and it really will take yourself personally and your relationship with the other person to a higher level,
A deeper level.
a much deeper level.
Yeah.
And there will be, and what that does, it creates space for more. Like even when I think myself, I can't imagine there being more.
I know.
Because there is so much with the two of us. I'm like, wow, we went there again and we went to a deeper place. And I want it, like, I'm surprised, but I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm like, oh my God, we did that. Like,
Yeah. And listen, like, you know, we've known each other years. We've had some crunchy moments. And I just so appreciate and am grateful for the ability for you to come to me and go, you know, that didn't feel so good the other day. And being like, oh, okay. Like sometimes I'm clueless, right? I mean, we're all a little self-referential. And sometimes it's a matter of we were moving too fast and we missed each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like often it's like there's been some speed as a culprit in some of it too for us. So to slow it down, to comb back over it, to go, oh, I missed you there. Oh, I didn't know that about you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's your care instruction. Got it. So next time moving forward, that might not happen in the same way. right?
Right.
I'm just so grateful for that, because especially as a relationship coach, I think this is why it feels like someone just hit me with a 2x4, because this is what I'm passionate about. And this is the work I do in the world. It's like, wait, you didn't feel safe to come to me when something didn't feel good to you, so we could have repaired it. You just chose to have a festering rupture for
Yeah.
months. And sometimes I can take that personally, like the person didn't trust me. But I also think sometimes people don't trust themselves to be able to handle it, and maybe not trusting the we, right? Um, but that's another layer for me of like, do you even know who I am? Like, I care about my pack. I care about your feelings. I care about anything that I might have done that for you just didn't feel good. Doesn't matter if it would feel fine for me or this person or that person. Like, oh, you as a unique human with your own history, with your own trauma, with your nervous system, like that thing for you doesn't feel good. Cool, got it. I will do better. I always want to do better. It just feels, I think I'm still in some surreal place of like, I don't normally have poor sleep, by the way. I don't normally lose sleep over much.
Mhm.
And I just found my brain going, none of this makes sense.
Mhm.
I mean, and I'll take that back. It makes sense from an attachment science lens, right? Of like someone who's wanting to connect and someone who's wanting to have space.
Mhm.
That totally makes sense. Some of us regulate together, some people regulate alone. There's nothing wrong with that. But there is something really off about the stories we can make up. I'll speak for myself. Like, oh, this person's not respecting my boundary, versus, I wonder if I didn't set a clear enough boundary,
Mhm.
right? Or I've done this with my partner where I'm like, oh, he doesn't seem to get how I feel, you know, or in a certain situation or whatever. And it's like, wait, maybe I haven't really explained it in a way that he can get. That's
Mhm.
a whole different muscle
Yeah. Yes.
than like, woe is me, he doesn't get me. Like, that's, where's that gonna get me anyway?
Yeah.
Right? Versus, hey, I know I've shared this with you before. I don't feel totally gotten here. Could we talk about this some more?
Mhm. Yeah.
It's normally like, oh, okay, sure, yeah, like, let's dig in. When you say it's not the norm, like, it feels like somebody like jiggled my brain
I know. Yeah.
because of my world.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I know I'm very privileged in a bubble of relationship school humans most of my hours. And
Mhm.
then a partner who's been on this journey with me, right? And you, and um, I'd say every one of my friends, like in that inner circle, I'm not used to this kind of treatment or behavior, or um, I don't believe in the disposability of friendships.
Mm. Same. Same. Yeah.
There has to be something like really unrepairable,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like going, oh, I don't operate this way. And someone else does think our friendship is disposable. And I thought our friendship could be for life. That's a big fucking chasm,
Yes. Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
I thought we were like great grandmama's crystal vase, and
Yeah.
I think we're a styrofoam cup. Oh shit. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got to like attune to that. I guess, you know, we're not the crystal vase. I don't think we're the styrofoam cup either. There's a reality check in that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
I don't like being thrown away. I mean, as a human, that's a really shitty feeling.
Mhm. To feel like
And,
you're disposable. To
and
and
yeah,
to be disposable by like for someone to dispose of.
and also I'd say someone that I care so much about and
Mhm.
truly deeply, love,
Mhm.
to be like, whoa, what? Like, I've missed like 16 significant steps, in my opinion, between getting rubbed the wrong way and a breakup.
Mhm.
I think those steps were skipped, at least over here,
Yeah,
right? And I think sometimes people can do the steps by themselves and be like clear, I guess. I mean, I don't know how that works. I'm saying this out loud to you. But you didn't do the steps with the person.
I was gonna say, does it really work? So if two people
No,
are,
it's totally obtuse to do it by yourself.
right,
If it's a relationship,
I mean, it can't work.
it can work if you're like, I'm working on my relationship to the shadow of money.
Sure.
But I'm working on my relationship with my friend over here in a silo by myself, seething. Good luck. I don't know. I don't know what to do with that.
I don't know what to do with that either. Yeah. And I said those words to myself in the last, well, certainly 24 hours, but even prior, I'm like, I don't know what to do with this because I don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
Right? I don't
Yeah.
know what to call this. I don't know. Yeah,
I appreciate you saying that. I think that's helping me understand why, like, it's not a quickly metabolized, digestible thing.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like, how does this happen?
yeah,
I have preliminary questions before I can digest.
yeah,
How does this happen? Why would this be the route?
right. Because I would take a very different route.
Tell me more.
Well, I would, if I was on the end of if I was on the side of, huh, this feels weird to me, doesn't feel good to me, or whatever the
Yeah,
situation
or
is.
it's activating me, whatever.
I'm feeling, yes, I'm feeling like I'm reacting and I'm not sure what happened. Initially, I would do some inner processing to fit, to hopefully figure out what that is.
Mhm.
If I couldn't figure it out, I then would find a trusted resource who could support me and say, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about this? Or because there are many, many, many facets to every situation. And then once I was feeling a little more resource for myself, then I would go to the person and say, hey, this happened and I'm feeling this way about it. And I would like to get your input on it and see what you have to say and feel about it. And then let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, at this point in my life, I wouldn't not be in touch with.
Yeah.
At the very least, I would just say, at the very least, I would say, I'm processing something. Give me a week, give me 2 weeks, whatever, and trust me that I will be in touch. And I would hope that the other person on this other side of the conversation would know me well enough to be like, hey, she's going through something and I trust she's got her back and I trust that she will come to me and talk and share what, yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I say I would do it differently. That's what I would do.
I share your process. Yeah, it would be inward and then ally. If I'm really like, if I'm just stuck, because sometimes I can't see it all, right? And then it would be after an ally, the next person would be the person. That's just a golden rule to me. It's like you get help, you talk to it with somebody, and then the next person is the person you're in conflict with.
Yeah.
You also just set a very clear and caring boundary, the way you said that. Like I can hear that.
Mhm.
Like I'm processing something. I'll get back to you in a week or two. Trust that I've got this, right? Like that's considering the other person.
Totally. Yeah.
Everything's great. I'm super busy. I think most of us can sniff out when something's sketchy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my sense. We still have our intuition and our instincts, So like just don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't be chipper and shiny when you're actually angry at somebody.
Yeah.
Like it's emotionally incongruent, therefore untrustworthy, therefore unsafe. You're gonna smile at me while like seething, which is basically that in text, right?
Yeah.
Like where are you giving someone like appropriate intel? I don't know. It's going to be a mystery for me for a while until I can come to terms with how it's possible to go from really loving friendship to an ending and miss a bunch of steps that I personally believe in.
Mhm.
Like my heart aches because it's like, but there's steps, there's a way through this. This is figure outable. You know what I mean? But to be frustrated by a moment, right? And throw it all away. Like,
Yeah.
I guess that's a way of life for some people. It's not the way I would ever handle my friendships. And again, like the exemption being like something really heinous happens.
Right. Right.
And it's like we're good.
Hmm.
But there's something in here for me around how you do it. The how. It's the how. The rest of it, sometimes we don't gel with our friends forever. It's okay. I think, but to use one example to write off 4 years, it's pretty devastating. I'm a big fan of redemption. I'm a big fan of like, oh, we mucked that up. Like, how'd that happen? Okay, let's keep trying.
Yeah.
Um, I also have a strong belief in integrative love, which means we accept and love people's messiness.
Huh?
Right. And we are tracking like we've just triggered their attachment wound. We've done something. I'll speak for myself. Like I'll be like, oh wow, I know that about that person. I activated that part.
Yeah.
And their behavior, while not pretty, makes sense.
Mhm.
Right. Versus that behavior's wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. It's all them. Like integrative love is like, I get why this person is suffering right now.
Mhm.
And I had a hand in it. Right. It's like not turning away. It's like leaning in.
Yeah.
Anything short of that, I'm not available for. Like you're not going to have any room for people to make mistakes. Good fucking luck.
Yeah.
You're wanting porcelain dolls then,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I am sure in the next decades together, you and I'm going to frustrate you. I'm going to disappoint you. You're going to feel dropped. There's no way I can be a perfect human all the time. But I don't expect you to then be like, we're done.
No. 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 I mean, that just feels so, I don't even have the word for it. The word that's coming up for me is foreign. It feels so out of my realm, out of my world, out of my purview, out of my everything.
Yeah.
And I also can't comprehend it in my brain.
Yeah. Same.
I can't comprehend it. I mean, what? Yeah.
I said as much to a friend earlier today. I was like, this is so outside the scope of the world I operate in that it's like not computing. But it's simply because I don't operate that way.
Mhm, mhm.
and somebody else does. Again, like I'm not trying to one up, one down, or it's
No.
just like, whoa, that is
Mhm,
as alien and foreign as it could possibly be.
mhm.
It's so counter my own ethos that it's like, people think that way? What? And it's good to remember, not the norm, what we do here, and that not everyone operates in the scope of generous assumptions, clear and caring boundaries, and a willingness to repair and to love a messy human, you know? I think I was thinking about this, a lot in my what should have been my sleep time. And I was like, it's a fantasy. It's a fantasy to remove yourself from someone's life for months when you've been in their life week after week
Mhm.
and expect them to what? Not be impacted? Not be worried? Not check in on you?
Yeah,
Not be curious? It's a fantasy. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want and you shouldn't be impacted. Cool. Let me try that with my partner.
right.
I
Yeah.
can say whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. I can, treat you however I want. And you should be fine. And you shouldn't be upset. You shouldn't be anxious. You shouldn't be angry. There should be no impact over there.
That's just not real. That's just not real. Like you said, it's a fantasy.
It's a total fantasy.
That's not real. And the other thing that I'm curious about, when that happens, when people do that,
Mhm.
do they actually believe that? Or is that something they tell themselves? Do you know what I mean? Like there are people who
Have they
really,
investigated it? Like,
yes. Have
yeah.
they investigated? Have they uh have they asked these questions of themselves?
Yeah.
How far are they willing to go? What are they willing to do? Uh
And how would they be impacted, right? Like,
how
I'm
would they
thinking,
be
like,
impacted? Yes.
if you were dating someone, and I've seen this a lot, with couples coaching, like if you dated someone who came on strong, who showed up all the time, who did all the things, who was amazing, and 6 months in, a year in, a year and a half in, they pull away like 85, 90%. You might be that batshit crazy chick
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
blowing up their phone and calling them and showing up at their door. Like people are like that
Mm-hmm.
because their nervous systems are not being taken care of.
Mhm.
Right. So it's like, yeah, reflect back on an incident in your life where someone legitimately dropped you. Could you just be like, no prob,
No,
all done?
no,
No,
no.
no. We have hearts, we have nervous systems, we have sensors and feelings. And like, to me, that's what kept coming through last night. I was like, it's a fantasy. What this person was expecting is a fantasy. Leave me alone until further notice. But that wasn't even said.
Right.
Even that would have been better.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe, maybe this person has never or hasn't really experienced a real
Friendship.
authentic, yes. And because you've given them a taste, I've given them a taste, couldn't handle it. I don't know. I mean, again, I've been ghosted. We've not been given all the information. But that's where I go because it takes a lot of courage to receive.
Yeah.
It does. It takes a lot of courage to receive deep love, deep truth, deep words, deep thoughts, all of it. And if you don't have it, I don't know where that leaves you, but it must leave you somewhere.
Yeah, I feel you there. I feel like that's obviously one of many probabilities, of like, sometimes we say we want something and we mean it, a part of us really does want that thing, and a part of us wants something else
Yeah.
and is willing to sabotage, or is simply, seemingly clear that it's not here. And I'm honoring the wisdom of anyone who opts out. Even if I don't totally get it, I don't think acceptance means I have to get it or like it. I
Mhm.
think acceptance is just a standalone
Mhm.
acceptance. To be like, oh, I'm not for everyone.
Yeah.
That's okay. But if me being caring and loving annoys you, we out. Like,
Mhm.
that's okay. Um, yeah. Could I have read between lines of words that weren't there? I don't think so. I think, I really sat with that. It's like I looked through all the text and I was like, I don't really see anything that's like, stop.
Mhm. Yeah.
I can see coffee soons. And how about in a few weeks and this and that. And it's like, could I, because I, like you, I'm gonna go look at like what was my side of the street. Could I have done something differently? And it's like, I can't read between lines that weren't there. Like that's not fair. It's just not fair. It's like me expecting you to be a mind reader,
Yeah.
then being mad at you that you're not,
Mhm.
you know. I just don't believe in a world where we do that to each other.
I don't either.
And I'm aware, like you said, that that world exists outside of our cozy, sweet circle.
Mhm.
It's a shame because there's a lot of heartbreak that could be avoided.
Yes,
You know,
it is a shame.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no one's ever unselected themselves and not been wrong about it, in my experience.
Mm. Mhm.
Boyfriends,
Mhm.
friends,
Mhm.
anyone who's bailed, I don't like when I look back, I think, yeah, they really couldn't have handled it.
Yeah.
They like opted out because they knew.
Mhm. Yeah. It's fascinating that you're saying that because I feel I feel pretty strong that there's someone in my life who is on the precipice of making that choice.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay,
Right?
okay, yeah. Um, because there have just been some challenging energy, and that's all I need to say about it. And I think, huh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There are many layers to it, but
I know there's so much to it. It's like, oh my gosh.
yeah,
I think the last thing I'll say, because it feels alive for me, is like how proud I am of myself for all the work I've done. Because I think the past me would have had some convincing, would have
okay,
had some reaching out again,
uh-huh.
had some like, oh, maybe I should email them. Maybe we could talk again. Maybe we could figure this out. Um, I have no cells in my body available for convincing energy. And that tells me, knowing who I was even 10 years ago, I have done a shit ton of work
Yeah,
because I just know the level of, but what about, but what about, but what about that I would have done in the past to keep someone in my life who wanted to leave my life.
mhm,
And I just sat with, yes, the heartbreak, yes, the devastation, yes, the grief, yes, the confusion, but no, not even like one little cell in my pinky going, maybe we could convince, convince someone to stay, convince someone to skill up, convince someone to love better, to do
mhm,
better.
yeah,
No, if it's not an intrinsic motivation, like, I've got shit to learn. I'm hurting people. I probably have shit to learn.
mhm,
Maybe I'm not the asshole, but an asshole in
yeah,
this,
yeah,
right? Because we all have our part. Then why would I convince anyone stay in relationship with me who doesn't know how to do relationship?
It's a really good question to ask yourself.
Well, I think I used to be vulnerable to the breadcrumbs people threw, and now
Yeah,
I've sat at the table and had feasts with you and with Richard and Kelly, and like I have friendships where we sit at the table and it's like so nourishing that a breadcrumb over there
yeah,
has no power anymore. That's how healing relationships can be.
yeah.
I'm
I'm
fired up.
I'm so grateful for this conversation. I've, I mean, I want to say I've learned a lot, and I have learned a lot, but it's so much more than that. Like these are things that we've not talked about, or talked about in this way. Let me say that, talked about in this way, in the depths of these waters. And I'm not there yet, but I know that at some point I'll be able to say that was one of the best things that could have happened to me.
Yeah.
Like I feel a little whoo, saying it, And the truth of the matter is that, yeah, I know that at some point I'll get to a place where I can say that.
Yeah. Me too. I feel like
Because
this is
screw the crumbs. Who wants crumbs?
no, and who wants to be around someone who only throws crumbs?
Right.
Ugh,
Yeah.
right? That's lame. I too feel like super appreciative of our talk and the depths that we're going to. And even though all of this is sort of I'm aware of, like there's something that's settling in my nervous system to unpack it. And yeah, I just want people to feel like they can trust the people around them that love them to at least try for repair before just exiting.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that it's a risk and I get that it's scary, but so is a life alone, unloved and untethered to community. Like,
Yeah.
I guess it's like choose your scary.
Yeah. Mhm. Thank you, friend.
Are we doing a question still?
Yeah, let's do a question.
Which pack is this?
Let's get deep.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right. So this is the finger. It's hard to move.
I know that one.
This one?
No, the other one.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm rolling my eyes, so I'm like, this isn't really about relationship, but okay. What type of governmental changes would you want to happen?
That's a pivot. Okay. Kind of governmental changes would I like to happen? Okay, well, I think I could headline this as removing corrupt money from politics, because I think that's the snake's head for big pharma and the FDA and insurance companies. Like, we have too many legislators being bribed by special interests against the American people. So it's not for the people, it's for the corporations. And if we could remedy that, like Citizens United, which sounds like such a nice term, but is really like, hey, corporations can give any amount of money anonymously forever to people, keep them in their pockets. I think that would have a cascade of humanitarian benefits to, just did I freeze? There we go. to remove basically the sleaze factor in our government, and then see what happens with good leadership. I think leadership training is sorely lacking in many places. And then I would love to have a global Department of Peace Building. That's like, before we even consider war, you know, kind of in tandem with what we've been talking about today, before we even consider the last worst resort, we have to go through a diplomatic approach until we have exhausted it. So I would like a Department of Peace Building that actually prevails before the Department of Defense. Defense is like step 2, like that we go to that like step 1 for some reason.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd ever ask you about governmental structural changes.
We've never talked.
No.
No, we haven't talked about any of this. So I would say that so there's a reason why when we elect a president, their term is only 4 years and they have to be reelected. And let's say they win the next 4, they can't campaign again. That's it.
Yeah.
I want to see the same for every other political position. There are way too many lifers in positions, way too many white men in these positions. So a lot of just a lot of change. I want to see more women. I want to see more people of color. I want to see just a wide, really wide range of
that represents us.
That represents this country.
Yeah.
Because we don't all look like this. We all don't look like what we don't. And so for me to feel even a semblance of fairness, I need to see that. I need that to happen. And then the last thing that I want to say is I really want a woman in the White House.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
I want it to be Mary Ann.
Oh, I know. I was when you said a woman, I was like, and I want it to be a good, compassionate.
Yes.
Right, because there are some women.
Yeah. Yep.
Sketchy out there.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
I'm so with you.
Yes.
I'm so with you.
Yeah. Someone who not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. I don't want to just hear words. I really want to, and I really believe that Marian has that. She can do that. Yeah, that's what I want. Those are the changes, just little changes, but
little changes, let's just not have our government people in the corporate pockets. And, I don't think of this as political in the sense of Republicans and Democrats. I think we have a problem with corporatists on both sides and simply not considering that person who doesn't know where their next meal's coming from or who's just gotten laid off. I'm thinking of so much of America that doesn't have a regulated nervous system, I guess, to use my own language. Much of this country, for a variety of reasons, whether it's I don't feel safe in my town because of my skin color, or I don't know if I'm going to find a job and feed my kids, like all of it. We are responsible for the nervous systems of our citizens. And until I see that happening, I'm going to keep wanting better, compassionate leadership in the White House and everywhere. I mean, this is not just about America, right? But
right.
Everywhere.
And those who have been elected to the Supreme Court, I think there needs to be a time limit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm going to stop.
I know.
That's where I am.
Part 2. We'll bring a political pundit in.
Yes, yes.
That might actually be fun. I know that's not normally our
I know.
theme, but I don't know. It's still a relationship. It's still.
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Thank you, friend.
thank you. It really lightens my heart and like brightens my spirit, especially today, to see
Yeah.
you and to feel super held by you yesterday. Yeah, just so appreciative, and just I can just feel like my whole tender heart, and it's really, I don't know, grateful is not the right word. There's just not a big enough word for how I feel about you. Thank you.
Thank you, friend. Yes. Thank you to our audience for being here, for listening whenever you decide to listen. And hit subscribe. We would love to have you join us. And until next time, wow.
So much
Thank you,
love.
everyone.